This is update for January 2nd, 2025, day 1044 of the war, and of the date update. Also catch up for January 1st and December 31st, 2024. I'm going to discuss today example or horrific story of the 155th Mechanized Brigade that hopefully will explain better all of the abstract discussion that I have where I'm talking about problems in Ukrainian army and that those problems are really start at the top of Ukrainian army and really go to the political top or Ukrainian president. I would say the root cause of it. But I just want to provide example of this, how it actually works, why it doesn't work really. 155th Brigade, Mechanized Brigade, was formed in March of 2024. Really nothing was going on there. It just had like a couple hundred people, basically commanders and some pretty much that's it. It's some technical personnel. And then sort of real formation and build up started in June of 2024. So this brigade was sort of example of this high-level political agreement between Ukrainian president and French president, where France agreed to provide equipment and training. So you can see the equipment that it got. The most valuable parts are really actually Leopard tanks and Caesar self-propelled howitzers. The rest, VABs, are essentially useless, and AMX is also essentially useless. But at the same time, you can see that it's pretty decently equipped relative to the situation with the rest of Ukrainian brigades. So the cost, so this whole was political deal that was widely advertised by both parties. And cost of the equipment, it was 900 million euros. 80% of that was cost of the heavy equipments, basically Leopards, Caesars, and so on. Even though I still don't understand how it's possible that 31 Leopards tanks and 18 Caesars cost that much, because honestly AMXs and VABs are just junk. So again, unclear why it's 900 million euros, but which seems to me widely inflated number. It shouldn't cost that much, but nevertheless, so this is the cost to equip this brigade formally. And then we're going to see how it's completely misused and this money wasted and people's lives wasted. And essentially, it's a complete disaster what happened. So, as I stated, the brigade really started being sort of built up in June of 24, real formation of it, and it had 2,000 people in it. Then in July it was brought up to 3,900. Then actually some of the people were actually taken away from it in August, so the number went down to 2,700. Then in September it was brought up to 3,250 personnel members. Then in October 24, it went to France. The staff was the total number strength was 3,200 people. Only 1,900 went to France for training during, and also later in November, it received another. Well, actually, it's from September through November, it received 4,000 new recruits. So this is the situation with this brigade. So at the end, in November, the total strength was 5,800 people. So this is before it got to the front line, and the training in France was in October, all months of October, and a little bit first, I think, couple weeks of November. And again, only 1,900 went to France out of 5,800 at the end of November. So during all of this time, since June through November, 1,700 people actually deserted. So it just gives you perspective of huge number of desertions from the unit. And again, another important consideration here: this situation is not exception. This is a norm in newly formed Ukrainian brigades. So this is the same situation across the board. It's just this example become very sort of epic, very widely publicized failure, but many other brigades are failing in the same way. It's just they are not as famous just because there was involvement of Ukrainian French president. So this situation become very well known. And also other brigades, they obviously don't get 900 million euros of equipment, so they sort of much poorer relatives of 155th Brigade. So this is what happened next. The brigade was being transferred to the front line, to actually Pokrovsk, at the end of November, without actually its headquarters and without battalion commanders. So basically, as you can imagine, the unit that's freshly formed doesn't have much coherence, and basically soldiers are sent without commanders to the front line. The other important part that out of this 5,800, as I stated, 1,900 went to France. The rest didn't go to France and had really poor training in Ukraine, so they basically were not battle ready. So this is what happens. You're sending brigade without commanders, and only third of the brigade is battle ready somewhat. The rest is just essentially not properly trained. So the commander of the brigade arrives only on December 4th to the front line with its headquarters and battalion commanders, and it almost immediately gets dismissed by Ukrainian president because on the allegations that 50 soldiers deserted in France. So apparently out of this 1,900, 50 deserted while they were in training in France. And so he was blamed for that. Obviously, he cannot control that situation. So this gives you an example of how arbitrary and capricious Ukrainian president is, where person simply cannot be responsible for quality of the recruits that it gets and their motivation. It's totally not under his control. So essentially, that created even more chaos in the brigade. And then in the first week of December, before it's seen the front line, another 200 soldiers deserted. So just in 1 week, as you can imagine. The other part of the brigade, so 95% of the commanders, or basically senior staff in the brigade, they never seen any combat. So no combat experience at all. It's completely green, and no adequate training as senior commanders in the brigade. Then 100% of the most important part in every brigade, which is UAV units, and typically there is at least squad in every battalion. So that's I would say, the most important piece or units within each battalion, because it's a reconnaissance and obviously also attack force, very important and extremely capable um, attack force. So so unit didn't have it. So you essentially the battle value of this brigade goes down immediately tremendously, because Russian opposing Russian units do have this UAV detachment, and so then you become you essentially not competitive in the fight. You simply cannot fight on the same level. Um, um, uh, then the other part is equipment. So all of this old equipment, which I called junk, which is AMX and VABs, they were apparently not properly serviced. So majority of them failed before even reaching frontline and required technical repairs. So essentially, not even this junk didn't get to the front line. Then another part that the artillery crews for this for Caesars also did not finish training, so they were basically learning based on the front line how to use their new equipment. And then to sort of cherry on the top of it, unit received um, defective 120 millimeter mortars. So entire brigade did not have any mortar support in during fighting. So you can imagine this is what gets to the front line. It's really even hard to call this as really a unit. It just don't even know how you call it, but this is clearly not a military unit. So this group of people and equipment gets to the front line and immediately gets shocked by having heavy casualties, which demoralizes everything even more. And so this is how it happens. This is why you see sometimes huge, well, not huge. I cannot call them huge advances, but large advances by Russian forces. This is why it's happening. And then additionally, on top of it, the Leopard crews also didn't have enough training, and then the most important, they did not have anti-UAV shields. So several of those were simply lost to UAV attacks, and as you can imagine, that's an important piece of equipment. So again, heavy losses, completely demoralized and disorganized, essentially group of people. Not It has nothing to do with actually ordinary soldiers or even commander. Commander is believed to be the former commander was believed to be capable. I cannot sort of. I'm basically relaying what sort of others were stating about him. But assuming he was capable, the rest he was essentially set to fail by this disastrous organizational mess that's is happening in Ukrainian army. So hopefully this gives you a little bit understanding why sometimes Russian troops manage to break through, and then certain sections of the front line collapse, and I would say there is a chance of much bigger collapse that's going to be much more catastrophic than what we've seen so far. Now I'm going to switch to actually walk through the front line in a clockwise fashion, the way I'll always do. So first, let's just start with a situation in Kursk region of Russia, where Ukrainian forces are on retreat and slowly but surely losing control of the territory. And I would say the fight for Sudzha, or let's say Russian attack on Sudzha, is not far away. So this this bridgehead is not gonna likely to exist for that long. I'm not saying it's gonna fall apart tomorrow, not in a week, probably not in a month, but in sort of, let's say, 2-3 months time frame, it's probably not gonna exist. Now let's move to the situation north and northeast of Kharkiv, where things are quiet, not much is going on. The main reason is that Russian side does not have free resources to attack here, even though they would really love to do it, because Kharkiv is a very important city from many perspectives. It's, I would say, really strategic place. So this quietness doesn't mean that that Russia does not want to capture Kharkiv. I would say that's the biggest dream, let's put this way, of the Russian command and the Russian political top to capture Kharkiv. Now let's move to the north Lugansk front line, or I would say Luhansk front line. And things here remain more or less the same. No major territorial losses by Ukrainian forces. So I would say relatively quiet, at least in it's most likely temporary situation. Now let's move to North Donbass front line. Northern part is quiet, as it's always been, or not always, but it's been like that for a long time. Similar situation in the southern part, with exception of Chasiv Yar, where the fighting in the town continues. I would say, generally speaking, Ukrainian forces are slowly but surely losing control of Chasiv Yar, but it's happening extremely slow. So this is probably going to take quite a while. And again, the main reason is lack of free resources on the Russian side. Now let's move to the central Donbass front line, where things the most difficult, I would say catastrophic for Ukrainian forces. And the main change over this past 3 days is that Russian troops continuing to advance toward this toward this area, Udachne, Kotlyne. The Kotlyne is not shown on the map, but essentially this road, Pokrovsk, Udachne. This is where Russian troops are really they sort of the main sort of goal, main push. That's where it's happening, and then obviously they try to support the flanks of that advance, and there is also push a little bit south of it. And then the other main area is obviously this, I would say, it's not pocket, but difficult situation for Ukrainian forces around Kurakhove, to the point that actually let's just discuss the situation around Kotlyne and Udachne. So this is a little bit dated map, because there's not huge differences, changes, but what happened, Russian troops advanced from Vovkove and Salone, and they essentially on outskirts of Kotlyne. So the biggest advance is here. That's where I'm showing. That's what they managed to capture. So as you can see, the advance is continuing. Next, this is area around Kurakhove, and also there are reports that Ukrainian forces are retreating from this power plant area. So essentially, this whole area is probably going to be evacuated by Ukrainian forces within a week, maybe 10 days. But it's essentially rear guard fighting right now here. And sort of there is no way that Ukrainian forces going to be able to hold on to this area. At the same time, Russian troops are not applying much pressure in the most dangerous area, which is Zelenivka. They either sort of waiting for more reinforcements or don't know the details, but so far they're on the pause. But it's again pause in preparation for the next attack, next offensive in very clear direction, which is this village Ulakli, because with the capture of this village, or even engulfing it on the both sides, essentially it cuts off completely supply and actually opportunity to retreat. So retreat will be sort of essentially breakthrough with significant losses at that point. But so far, apparently, Russian command is accumulating resources there for the sort of final move. Similar situation around Velika Novosilka. The front line stabilized, no major Russian pressure. Again, apparently, Russian command is preparing for the next attacks in this area. Now let's look at the situation on the Zaporizhya front line, where things are quiet, nothing major going on here. And then let's finish with the situation along the Dnipro River, and things again here quiet again, no major moves by the Russian side. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Till next time. Bye bye.